And we are off to the races, guys. I see Ray is the first one in the house.
Aw, that's nice. Hi, Ray. Congratulations. You made it. Hooray, hooray, hooray.
And Jason from Oz, good morning. Good day, mate.
Yes, hello, Jason. And there's our KK. Thank you for being here, girl, all the time.
Yeah, I want to say thank you guys for hitting that button and giving us the like, and thank you for sharing our videos and doing all you can to, again, waken the world to what's been going on so we can clean house and move on into a different era.
I know. Hi, Christine Love, Tatarian Vagabond, Everett. It's great to see you. Yes, everybody's here. Awesome. And Dave Paduba, great to see you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us. So, there's a lot going on. There's tons of stuff happening, and yet it feels like it's, there's like this pause. I think there's a lot of realization going on in people's minds, and maybe they don't even know how they should react at this point yet.
No, I think it's been a little bit tough, with all this information coming out at lightning speed, and with all of the technology that we're being surrounded with, all the EMFs. It's like so much information so fast. How does the human system really truly respond to such lightning fast information? I think we really need to slow it down for ourselves and actually process, because without the ability to process, we lose the wisdom of lessons that are learned in this life. I feel like the wisdom and the lessons are just getting skipped over, and we're just going to the next answer and the next show and the next thing and the next and the next and the next. But it's really helpful to come together in these rooms and kind of help each other process. That's one thing that slows it down. So thank you for all the thumbs up and being here and interacting, and it's all very nice.
It is. And we have Alex and Her Highness and Shelley. Good to see you as well. Man, it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of processing being done. I think, again, a lot of people think they're going to wake up and the world's going to go back to normal. But, back with the first eclipse, some of the first videos that I made, it was talking about how the world has changed and it's not going backwards. We're not going backwards. We're only going forward. Ham, good to see you out there as well. So glad you made the live too. Running the gauntlet. Yeah, get out in nature is a great idea. We got most of our other stuff done early today, and now it's just off to work here.
Yeah, now it's off to work.
Yeah, it's another gray day again. Are the clouds real? No, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of, again, the spraying going on. We all know how it is. And, that does affect you. We need sunlight. We need fresh air. We need fresh food and clean water. And, with the revelations of what's already come to pass with everything that's been done with the Maha movement, RFK Jr., etc., and, fluoridated water, chlorinated water, all these other things, you would think that a lot of local governments would be doing a lot of positive changes. But it seems like, creatures of habit are what humans are. And in a lot of ways, they're like playing Simon Says. I think a lot of people don't have maybe the ability to really think for themselves and to really, take the bull by the horns and get some things going in a positive direction.
I see it as a deep psychological issue that starts, right out the door going into, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. All of a sudden you're realizing that, there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And, I seem to always been on the latter end. I was always doing the wrong thing, and I lost a lot of confidence in myself in school. I just could not get it right. I was always doing the wrong thing. So I lost a lot of confidence. And in that, I think that's so deliberate. that construct, because then it sets you up for doing something like, oh, well, so and so, if I do what they do, then I'm going to be right and I'm going to be safe, because we're also herd animals. Humans like to roam together. Numbers mean safety for a lot. So I think then throughout life, that tends to get broken down and you become a critical thinker. But I think it's very, very difficult once the pattern is set. It's very hard to break out of that pattern.
Yeah, so it seems like everybody's got a lot of clouds going on. And Will says, does anybody feel energy portals for the Ring of Fire eclipse today?
Oh my gosh, yes. A lot of that, a lot of buzzing, reports of tingling, bodies just, doing something very, very different. I think when I feel a really strong frequency change, a lot of times it'll show up as anxiety in my body, and then if I sit with that for a minute and focus on it, then I realize which chakras those are, and those chakras are getting upgrades. So for me, this time was my throat chakra and my solar plexus were getting really, really strong upgrades today. So of course that also affects the heart. Where were you guys feeling it? Will, I'm curious. I know you're super sensitive.
Yeah, I've been noticing the downloads. There's a lot of things in mind that want to share, and some things will have their own videos. But, I don't think there's anything natural about the world that we've been brought up in. Nothing natural at all. Even just like getting up and going in, you work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. I've shared with you guys most of my life. I worked 10 hours a day, typically, sometimes more, and 6 days a week. I worked on Saturdays all the time too. Cindy and I, well, we make our own schedule, so that's a blessing now. But we pretty much work every day. But it's different when it's something that you truly love and you're doing it just from the heart. So, it's totally, totally different than when, you're doing it with a corporation per se. Pinch runner, hands electrified. Oh, absolutely. I think I'm taken back to the words of that Chinese Qigong master that supposedly lived almost 300 years, like 256 years. He said to sleep like a dog, and to eat lightly, and only eat what you really feel like eating. Again, I think we have a tendency to overeat in our culture, to eat too often, which doesn't give the body time to purge and cleanse itself, and that's really one of the biggest problems that they've set us up with, is the 3 square meals a day idea concept, and then snacks in between, because then we just don't have the time to detoxify. And, then you get overrun, and cancer wasn't a problem like 100 years ago. It's really just developed with our modern lifestyle, especially since they gave us that upside down pyramid, again, that tells us to eat 10 to 12 servings of breads and pastas and what? It's again, so much carbohydrates, your insulin spikes, it's just inflammation. It's just, you just don't have anything like we were intended to have. So I do think, again, we should probably be taking naps and view naps as like download times and upload times. They're processing time for us. And we switch something off, take a break, and then we come back to this reality. I think that if you can, it's a big, big blessing. And I think it can help you and help your health to take, 15, 20-minute power nap, etc., half hour, what have you. If you can, I think it's actually healthy. Think of a computer, right? If you leave your computer on all the time and you don't reboot it, turn it off and let it restart, how it bogs down? And I think that we do the same thing. This kind of realization was just coming to me today.
I saw Okay, so running the gauntlet, lots of tension in the neck. You know what I was picking up? There's like a blockage coming from the chakra going out the back of your neck. So one thing that can really help that tension is castor oil with some magnesium oil. Might help that unless you've already tried it, but that's just what came to me, And then I was just looking back and wondering, well, where did we learn all the really, really important lessons in life? And actually, it was in kindergarten. I don't think we were super warped in kindergarten. That's just kind of where it started. But, some of the rules in kindergarten could apply still today and be very useful, like share everything, play fair, don't hit people, don't bite people, and put things back where you found them and clean up your own mess. If we all could just stick with those few rules, we might be in good shape.
Yeah, and I don't think we've ever shared. Cindy could see anybody in chat's energy at any time. She has the ability to zone in so quick and to see what your chakras look like in your energy field. This is part of what we do in our sessions. But let me get started with the news. And so, the biggest quake that we have in the last 24 hours is this one over here. Guess where? It's over off the coast of Kamchatka. It happens to be pretty close to right here, which is that nuclear sub-base that Russia has over here. This is their largest Navy base in the Pacific region. And, there's been a ton of quakes going back to that one mega quake we had. Gosh, was that about 6 months ago? I forget how long ago that was. But this is a 6.0. It's 43 kilometers deep, so still relatively shallow. As far as the other big ones, well, this isn't big, but it catches my eye. Bridgewater, Maine. This is kind of an odd spot. You get them here every now and then. There is some sort of fault line that runs alongside the St. Lawrence River. So, very, very curious one. We've had a lot of curious ones. This looks bigger than it really is. Oklahoma City, I think this is again about fracking. It's at 3.1. You do get quite a few in Oklahoma. We have one over here, a little closer to the New Madrid. This is a 2.3 in Tennessee. A little bit quieter up around Yellowstone because it's been busy overall for like weeks up in the Yellowstone area. It's also been pretty busy in Utah. As you can see, we only have one there at this point in time. But if we go out and look at the last 30 days in this area, you can see it's been darn busy. So, curious too what you guys in that area are feeling out there as far as the Earth activity. We have a couple of 5s down in South America. I think one of them rolled off. And, there's some swarming over in the Caribbean. You get this over in this area between Puerto Rico and Haiti, Dominican Republic. So I just wanted to show you that also because I'm going to show you in preface. We're going to go through some e-file stuff and then we'll go on to the military aspect because right here, through here, Pillar of Hercules, Gibraltar, the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier group just made its way into the Mediterranean, which it's going to end up being stationed over here off the coast of the Levant, which is within striking range of Iran. And so, as you know, or maybe you don't know, there's been a lot of tension with Iran again. It's been ongoing. We know there's been strikes there in the past. Israel struck in the past. Will something bigger happen? We shall see. I think, again, with everything going on in the world, I think that there's definitely people out there that want a distraction. By the way, I want to thank everybody for your support over at Patreon. Memberships there start as low as $1 a month, and there are exclusive videos over there as well as just an amazing, wonderful group of people, of which a lot of you guys are members. So here you go. This is Representative Nancy Mace. Did you want to talk about anything before this? No. Go into this. Now, it appears, she's from South Carolina. And she says that people showed up to terrorize her because she has been one of the most outspoken people, along with Thomas Massey. It feels like she kind of went into the shoes of MTG in some ways, as being picking up the mantle of one of the most outspoken Congress people in regards to all the corruption and everything happening.
So I just left the office. Something weird was happening. We noticed some people standing out front of our office building doing some cult-like stance or trance or whatever, and there were cameras there. I left. We filmed part of it. We'll post it here in a minute. But they went to my office a little bit ago. We called the cops. We called the police. Thank God law enforcement are nearby and patrol our offices. But they were rattling the door, it sounded like trying to break into our office, aggressively handling the door. There's camera crews there. They called the media. So this is some sort of, set up by lunatics on the left.
The thing, being a very cynical person, I guess, maybe I've become a little bit cynical by nature. When she talks about some sort of cultic stance, right? And you then have the cross earrings on. It's, to me, a very, very divisive way of putting things, and, again, people become so entrenched in the groups that they relate to that maybe they don't even notice that they do it, or maybe they do, basically talk to their group. The left right is obviously, it's one of the biggest tools that the system has. And of course, religion too. It's one of the biggest tools that the system has. When you put politics and religion together, and if we were not divided on those two major items, I think we could get an awful lot really done. But the division, it's being fomented, to use a word that was used by Albert Pike back in 1871, to create, again, this dichotomy in which we're always fighting ourselves. It doesn't negate the fact that, we know what we've seen in major cities with Antifa. We've seen all sorts of stuff. And then, of course, you could go back into the history books and, there was a time when they were burning crosses in people's yards. And there were witch hunts. There were the Crusades, Christianity. It never ends. This is the thing. It's not to deny that there's things that are happening with the lunatic left or the religious right. It's that we got to really realize that at every level people are being manipulated, whether it's just a job of acting completely or whether people, just truly do believe what they're telling us.
Yeah, the divisive nature seems to be so built into our very being, to our soul, to, and that
and
yes,
it's at 2:22.
At 2:22, we're talking about the divisive nature of everything here. Really, really look at that. That's just something you just don't want to be divisive. I can understand it's great and wonderful if someone has a belief system and they like to believe a certain thing, but that's not the only way. That's not the only way. There's several ways to believe, and that's what spirituality is about. It's opening that door to the soul.
And I agree with you totally, sweetie, but at the same time, we know that there's belief systems out there that say this is the only way.
Yeah, and that just, even though someone might be nice while they're saying it, I don't think they realize maybe they're being divisive,
No, I think most don't have a clue.
I don't think they do it on purpose. They don't realize, okay, to someone else who doesn't believe that that's the only way, what are you saying? That their way is not the right way, that they are not divine like the other person is. It's just, I think these subtle words, and I'm sure I'm guilty of it too, of not realizing I'm being divisive. And I try my hardest. I really do. I speak from my heart. I mean no harm. I mean no nothing to make anyone else feel disqualified or less than, but it's all about practice, and it's all about feedback, and it's all about understanding who you are. And in this world, boy, we really, you gotta know yourself. It helps so much to get through this world if you just understand your own reactions.
Yeah. So, obviously, with the issues that have been coming up in this time period, I think everybody in chat, or the vast majority of us in chat, line up with agreeing with one side more than the other. Yet at the same time, it's obvious that both sides have always been manipulated, and the name of the game is manipulation and division. Order out of chaos, ordo ab chaos. Again, when, what was that quote that Bob said? If it comes down to name calling and labels, any common ground is dissolved. Exactly, and that's you're never gonna get anywhere when it gets down to that level. So she is also saying that she's calling on the CIA to allow us to view any and all records, documents, photos, videos, passports, and other material that they may have in their possession relating to the E-Man and GM as well. Congress needs to know what, if any, relationship the CIA had with the E-Man and what information they're sitting on, classified or not. We want to see it. Yeah, I really think that when you get into things like classified, need to know basis, and it's a matter of national security again. I think national security literally translates usually to the security of those in the power structure that want to maintain their position in the power structure. And if we realize what they're doing, we would not approve. That's really what most of it comes down to. And I do think that they always use boogeymen, whether it's, the communist peril, that communist peril that was actually funded by the most powerful capitalists on the planet. This is again how, it's all about making that means to an end and keeping people fighting themselves so they don't realize that they're just running a game. It's literally a game, and this is how he was playing it. He was playing it like a game, and it's a game in which they want to be the house in Monopoly, and they want to control everything, every little thing. They want all of us just to be their slaves. That's really what it is, and this is really how I think, unfortunately, a big percentage of government officials end up looking at things as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess out there right now, and it's actually so chaotic. It can be very, very difficult on the nervous system. And I think it was Sonia was mentioning in there how it's so hard to find motivation and interest. And usually what that is, I've learned in my life, that's nervous system dysregulation, usually from just too much on the outside of you, or having to do too much, or old traumas. That's your soul saying, hey, we need to rest a minute. But there are ways to get the mind, body, and soul back together so that you can rest and regain your motivation. But that's your body saying, hey, something's not right. It's too hectic out there, and I'm just not going to do it right now. So yeah, slow down. Things like yoga, getting that vagus nerve to vibrate can really, really help. But this is why we're here. We understand there's a lot of chaos out there. We're here to try to help people regulate in different ways, because the chaos is definitely not going to go away. So we have to find ways, healthy ways to deal with it and cope and regulate ourselves.
So, yeah, the Zorro Ranch, they're going to look into it a little bit more. I don't know. Will they just dig the whole area up, use LiDAR, find what's buried there? We'll see. But this says a person with Air Force and topography experience flagged Zorro Ranch's placement as screaming underground facility under the mesa. He spotted 10 to 12 industrial vents on the south side, steel grates with concrete lips plunging deep like secret lair HVAC. Oh, I'm sure, again, maybe there's even just a direct connect to the inner Earth reptilians. Maybe it actually connects again to some of the secret underground bases over there by Taos. Again, New Mexico. Whoa. New Mexico is it's one of our favorite states, and it has a real mix of energies. There's some very, very sacred places, and there's some very, very dark places where you could really feel the ultra-terrestrial presence.
Yeah, it's those subtle vibrations that you learn to listen to, and just pinch runner, as far as healing with sound, that really got my attention some years ago when I was working on my own PTSD, and realizing that the energy field can hold on to tension, and with just the whack of a tuning fork, that tension can be released. But here's the key: it's not always the tool, it's the energy behind the tool. And I really like it when Mike and I both work on someone, because that energy that we output is added to that person and helping to release that tension that's in the energy field. And then usually people instantly relax and they can finally rest for a minute when we're balancing them.
Yeah. So, Sonia, we're sending you positive energy and frequency. May you, find that rekindling of interest and purpose. So important. It is so important. And Zorro Ranch, in case I didn't mention this is one of the E-Man's properties, of which, again, he was very wealthy. So he had properties all over the place. This is a big ranch in New Mexico. This is a singer, MIA is the name, claims Jay-Z and Beyonce pressured her into all sorts of nasty, nasty stuff. And, again, now they're coming out of the woodwork admitting things. And literally, the whole industry is dealing with the devil. And this is part of another thing that they do. So if you are coming out of the Abrahamic tradition, and your traditional Orthodox Christian beliefs, and you really do believe in an actual individual Satan, individual devil, and you see what's going on, you recognize the demonic tendencies of these beings, in your mind, it verifies the entirety of the religion. Everything, including blood sacrifice and, for sins and original sin concept. It is, I think, common that people take one verification and use it to verify the entirety of the belief system, when in reality, it doesn't do that at all. It just, is one aspect that, there are demonic activities going on, and there are very demonic entities involved, and they try to get other people to be demonic like them, but it doesn't verify everything. It doesn't verify blood sacrifice and original sin. It just shows you, again, and it doesn't mean that these are demons and not extraterrestrials or not inner earth beings or what have you. This is what happens. There's this automatic conclusion. And so, one thing verifies everything. Well, they want you to think that. They want you to have those associations because they've programmed into the belief sets, that we have, the dominant ones, ideas that are useful for them and ideas of division. Again, we were just talking about if there's only one way, because like in Islam, you're going to take it to be, again, there's some stuff in Islam, and there's some stuff in Christianity as well. That's very much, it's our way, or you're basically under the devil's power. But the reality is, again, it's just a system being used to control us. And here you go. Here's a debunker, ABC News reporter. He debunked, the thing, pleads guilty to something. This is what your debunkers are. The guy that started and ran Snopes, that was always debunking stuff. Him and everybody working for him, for the most part, they were involved in a lot of corruption, and most of them had problems, being charged with different things. It's just another technique that they use. They go on the offensive, trying to debunk things that are absolutely true. And, again, they stifled so many people from speaking the truth. And, in my mind, they cost a ton of lives. Again, share what you guys think. Japan, China, South Korea preparing to ban Gil Bates lab-grown artificial and synthetic foods or meat. Yeah, I mean, it's just been completely proving that these things are not nothing that any of us want, And people are just amazed, and they don't have answers, though, that he's still just walking around. This is Sawyer G, and talking about, this was an email from December 2014, 6 years after the E-Man's conviction for sex trafficking. And it's with Bill Gates. He's talking about Bill Gates hosts a breakfast with billionaire donors. Afterwards, emails the E-Man a detailed readout on each attendee. And the E-Man writes back, coaching the richest man in the world on what he did wrong and how to fix it. And he wants to be Gil Bates' partner, friend, colleague, etc., and coach him. Who really was this person that was always, it seems, around all the very most rich and famous? Who really was he? To be in all these circles, it's almost like he's like Santa Claus. He's everywhere all the time. How does he do it in one night?
Collecting DNA too, that's what really stuck with me, is that he was in charge of all this DNA, and it just really feels like, and it still feels like to me, that he was, there's a setup for the next reset. That's what it feels like. He was like a important part of pulling together the next reset.
Yeah. So it seems to me like in his position that he was in, I wouldn't be surprised if he got face to face with ultra-terrestrials. I would not be surprised at all if he was, communicating and relaying information from tall grays and maybe reptilians as well. And hello there, Emma. Happy Chinese New Year. It's the fire horse, isn't it? May you be surrounded by love, growth, abundance, and prosperity. Absolutely. Let the world take a big bath from all this and cleanse ourselves of this filth so we can start being constructive. I think there's so much that could be done, and it wouldn't take much time at all. I mean, getting cleaned off of this mess might take a little bit. But we could start things rolling positively very, very quickly.
Sage is helpful.
Yes. By the case. Absolutely. And then this is MTG, and, she's no longer in Congress. She probably has some other ideas. Who knows? Maybe she'll run for president. Who knows? But basically calling for a political revolution, because they're all... And this is her words here. Our government is a bunch of, and, saying the worst things that we've heard. So it's coming straight out of her lips. To me, I have to say, being a little cynical, I feel that this big revelation is part of the plan. I do think this is part of the plan because, again, so much is coming out. They can't control it. This whole aspect of their program is going to be torched. They must have another twist in order to hook us into something different.
Everything that makes it out to mainstream, you pretty much can guarantee they're having you look from one thing to another thing. So it's more like, in this world, if you want to know what's going on, you have to be flexible, keep your head on a swivel, and don't discount anything. But that can take up a lot of resources and a lot of energy. So if you're wanting to look at these things, I think it's a good idea to definitely give yourself breaks. Give yourself a minute, and especially listen to your body. And if you feel that tugging downward, or if you start to be in kind of a bad mood and things just don't feel good, go do something different. Go outside, ground yourself, be in nature, watch funny animal videos, do something, anything, but don't let yourself get drugged down.
Yeah, so KK was saying he's perhaps an ET body shapeshifter. It's just the ability to get audiences with everybody and anybody of any significance. It's pretty interesting. There are people out there that say, the Elites have been building these gigantic, bunkers underground and et cetera, people like, again, Bezos and Zuckerberg and, because they know there's going to be a pole shift and all the earth changes that are going to come from that. But then other people are saying now, maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it's going to be exposed what they've been doing all this time, and it's so they could go hide somewhere safely and comfortably away from the public, because they won't be safe anywhere on the planet.
No.
No what?
No, they're not going to be safe anywhere on the planet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because, I was wondering if it's like no to the earth changes or no to the safety. This is, again, Mike Yeadon. He was the president of PFIZER. And this is a 1 minute and 11-second clip. We'll love it when you get all these interesting numbers.
We are living in a tyrannical situation where there's only 2 clicks left when you are required to have digital ID to move around and have a life, and when cashless central bank digital currencies are the only way you can buy and sell. At that point, you've lost your freedom. If you follow the breadcrumbs to 2030, anyone can look up the UN 2030 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. By 2030, Britain specifically will have no commercial passenger aircraft leaving the country. You will not be able to leave. There will be no ships leaving the country. You will not own private transport. You will have a digital ID to do everything, and you will only have electronic money with which to transact. I would say at that point you are a slave, and because you can see them coming, you should say no. Say no right now. Stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, it's just crazy what we have seen in the UK and also in Australia and New Zealand and Canada too. It's horrible. We have so many good friends in those areas, people that are just wonderful people, and they're being subjected to this. Of course, in the U.S., we have our own set of issues.
We have our own set of issues. We have just a lot of the food is so very, very dangerous. But it would be nice to see things getting better across the board, and not just, a good little thing here and a good little thing there. It's like, whatever things are wrong. If they're wrong, they're wrong. Fix it. It shouldn't take a rocket scientist to go through and look at all the poison in our foods and the issues in school and the justice system and the legal system. It's not hard to see the problems. It's just somebody's pockets are getting lined. So when it comes to guarding money, I guess there's your problems with everything.
And I see George in the house as well. Good to see you. So the EPA has reapproved dicamba, a dangerous pesticide, even after courts had twice blocked its approval over health and environmental concerns. Obviously, why do we even have the EPA? This all has to go. They don't serve any good purpose. That is so obvious. Just look at the results.
I know, it's a mess.
Yeah, and here you have another one. This is the Netherlands State Secretary for Finance, Nathalie van Berkel. She's resigned. She was set to oversee the controversial 36% tax on unrealized gains. The reason behind her resignation is having falsified educational credentials on her CV and LinkedIn profile. Yeah, again, they only promote really those that are the most corrupted or corruptible.
Well, the ones that are most controllable, anyhow.
Yeah, predictable, because they're just going to do whatever. They're going to take the money. They have no morals. They're just about bettering themselves in their mind, but it's not really bettering yourself. And then we go on to everything happening over there, Iran, and this is the tanker activity in the Strait of Hormuz. Again, oil prices started to go down because there's some news coming out. This is talking about Iran threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, but there's different things coming out right now, and it feels really like this is all art of war. Feels like there's a lot of conflicting things. Netanyahu had flew to Washington to supposedly nudge Trump into a nice big full strike on Iran, which would tip off a bigger war, which is actually something that the Polish psychic, reading Netanyahu's energies, literally reading his mind, Christoph gets that he wants WW3 because, again, they want to create what's called Greater Israel, which would envelop a big, huge chunk of the Middle East, much, much bigger than what Israel is right now. And that's actually really the goal that Netanyahu has in mind. But here you have a statement coming out from the Iranian talks that are ongoing. We were able to reach broad agreement on a set of guiding principles based on which we will move forward and begin working on the text of a potential agreement. Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi, interesting name, Abbas, because he's the FM and his name is Abbas. So whenever you see that, I think of Nostradamus with Mabas or Mabas. Dies, and then there's just a horrible undoing. So whenever I see Abbas in a person's name, I always wonder, is this something to do with what Nostradamus saw as the start of the World War III? Now, this just felt really ominous to me. I don't know why. That's the aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford. It's entered the Strait of Gibraltar and now heading over towards the eastern Mediterranean will station. So then there would be two aircraft carrier groups, which include a lot of fighters, a lot of firepower, within striking range of Iran. So where it is now, maybe like around the weekend, it would be in position. So are we really watching just maneuvering? Is it all like just maneuvering? Iran, by the way, let this video out, which is again, and they did do some test firing of some rockets over there in the Persian Gulf. There's a lot of bluster, but again, we've had exchanges go on. Interestingly enough, again, Christoph has seen that, just as we've noted, they're having a hard time getting this started. I think that's because of our consciousness, and we're fighting it. We don't want this to kickstart. At the same time, everything that's coming out, wouldn't that be quite a distraction? Literally, WW3 happens with everything that's going out. I mean, think about it, and think about like some of the prophecies that we've talked about. So, yeah, I hope a deal is done. I hope Trump decides to go against Netanyahu's wishes and, listens to the higher self and doesn't actually start this third WW. Meanwhile, China's upgrading its entire Type 39 AIP submarine fleet with YJ-19 hypersonic anti-ship missiles, giving non-nuclear subs an unprecedented strike capacity, 500-kilometer range at Mach 5. 500 kilometers is what, about 300 miles? I think it's like 0.6 of a mile. So that would be about 300 miles. they would have to get within 300 miles of, say, the United States coast in order to reach our coastal cities. But, this is a little disconcerting because, again, these can be launched from standard torpedo tubes, they say, making it easier to retrofit older boats. By the way, there's a massive Chinese fishing fleet off the coast of Chile that I forget if we talked about that or not. But they have outfitted thousands of what look to be fishing boats, literally with military hardware. This is part of China's Navy, which is the biggest Navy in the world. It wasn't, the biggest Navy in the world, I want to say 5 years ago. I don't think it was. But they've been rapidly modernizing and producing. Again, China has the most production capabilities by far of anywhere in the world. So, if you're talking resupply in a war, you're not going to beat them. You may have better quality, but, again, quantity-wise, it would be hard to keep up.
I would think so. It's just, it's definitely a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, and Susan says presidential powers during the war. Yeah, you're basically, everything is off. Look at, what's his name? Zelensky. He's president for life, and if that, or until the war stops, and then they would have to have elections. But while the war is ongoing, there's not going to be any elections. And 1800, the last president, right? Remember that book? We, during the first Trump presidency, well, here you go. Will Trump be the last president? Because will we go to just something real different? Whether or not the U.S. stays together, breaks up into individual groups of states, or gets into a full-fledged war, and if it doesn't win, will it exist? Or will it be taken over by other nations, in effect, China and potentially Russia? But I think China is, the bigger threat to the U.S., but as we know, they are working together, and yet the U.S. has been a big threat to all sorts of countries around the world since its, inception. This is a little bit more in-depth, getting into China's growing arsenal of hypersonic missiles. Now, these are missiles that I'm not sure the video that we've seen of what they say are hypersonic missiles are really hypersonic missiles. They almost remind me of what the rods of God would be like, perhaps coming from literally up in orbit on satellites instead of being fired out of, subs or other means and methods. They move so quick, it's just indefensible is what they say. But I don't know. I just feel a deception with this.
Yeah, I feel there's just too much chaos. There's too much back and forth and just too much information contradicting. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sonia, yes, feel free to contact us. Again, it's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. And there's links on every video. When you just go and click down the More section, you could find the link and just click right on it. Usually allow about 2 weeks to get on the schedule, but we would love to help. And of course, when things are dire and urgent, then we could always squeak something in somewhere. So, again, you have all this going on. Russia pounded by the biggest Ukrainian drone swarm since January, ahead of the Geneva talks, which we were talking about. So obviously, there's big money in this. We all know that the military-industrial complex. I don't know. Is it the biggest money maker on the planet, or is it big pharma? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit convoluted.
Meanwhile, look at this. U.S. military attacks, CIA coup, and clandestine operations in foreign countries. I think this is also why, honestly, I think Trump renamed it from Department of Defense to Department of War. It's just simpler, right? Look at this. Iran, 1946. China. Yeah, absolutely. 46 to 49. China. Greece. Italy. Philippines. Korea. Iran. Vietnam. Guatemala. Lebanon. Panama. Haiti. Congo. Vietnam. Again. Cuba, Laos, Ecuador, Panama, Brazil, Vietnam again, Indonesia, Congo again, Dominican Republic. You can see, it just goes on and on and on and on. Why? Because the U.S. has been utilized as, basically the military and policing unit. If you really want to just, be straight to the point, for, again, the Red Shields and the Rockefellers and, the big banking cabal in reality.
Yeah, it's yucky.
Yeah, but this is, again, what is being uncovered. So look at all that. None of that involves, we're not talking inside the U.S. It's not like uprisings or what have you inside the U.S. These are other countries that we've been involved with. Again, it's not the public. But this is the public. What's going on here? Well,
I'm not harming myself.
What's your concern with him?
This lady is calling she's calling the authorities because she can't handle the fact that her son is a radical right-winger. And he's radicalized, so she's calling the authorities on him, and this did happen in World War II in Germany. It happened in other places too in the past. I mean, look to China with Mao. Look to the Soviet Union, Russia with Stalin again. And it's happening again. 22-year-old son's been radicalized. Well, again, this is actually his channel. And, if he's trying to look like somebody from World War II, he's doing a great job right there. I mean, that's just... wow, I think I'm watching a movie. But are we? Are we? So here you go. He gets small views, so he's probably, authentic with his views. And sharing truly his views, unless all of a sudden you see, a million views somewhere. But yeah, this is him, Hugh Anthony, man fighting for the British and the British only. And his mom is calling on him because of his radicalized geopolitical views. Crazy.
It's that makes me sad at how generationally parents are being pulled away from their children, or children are, just pushing away their parents. And, that starts in school. And it's so sad because, we're told, oh, send your child to school and, they get a free education and they're going to have a good life. And they just encourage the children to be away from home. But what I'm really happy about, what I see lately, is a lot of moms homeschooling, keeping their children at home, keeping their children close, and just not letting the system raise their children. The system's not doing any favors. I think children, it's good that they get out and socialize. That's very important. But, home is sacred. Those four walls are sacred, and you learn things with your parents that you could never learn in school. I know in school, gosh, I learned about parallelograms, but how is that helping me now if I need to make repairs on my house? It's like, oh gosh, thank goodness I learned about parallelograms. That's really important when my bathroom has a leak. It's just goofy.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, Peter. Good to see you. And this is very telling. This is the increases since when, right? Back when we were all locked down, so to speak. Oh, this is a U.S. Navy medical officer. Look at this. This is military personnel. Our first line defenders. Myocarditis cases increased by 151%. This is all in basically a 5-year period. Ischemic heart disease increased by 69%. Pulmonary heart failure increased by 62%. Heart failure increased by 973%. Boy, does that tell you something. Boy, does that tell you something. And what happens when these people that have these underlying issues are put into the theater of war? The adrenaline, the heart pounding, the tension, it's going to be a mess.
Well, yeah, I mean, inflammation, as soon as you get stressed, that's like the body's instant reaction, and that's really, really not good.
No, but it's very, very telling because, again, these people didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice. And so the numbers, I mean, heart failure, 973% increase with a group that should be in good health. Oh, by the way, over here in Home Depot, they're partnering with Clear. It's a biometric future that's coming. First airports, then apps, now hardware stores. Starts as security, becomes standard, ends as required. Yeah, again, take a photo of yourself, scan the QR code, upload your valid license and stuff. It's just another step. We know. I don't think that they're going to still have, I got to say, maybe I'm optimistic too much, but I think this whole movement's going to it's going to crumble. I'm definitely hoping it's going to crumble. I think it's going to crumble before 2030. I mean, that's kind of my feeling.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. Well, it's definitely going downhill now, and we have this cancer that's inside the system, and it's really quite ugly. There's like a rust or a rot going on right now, and it really needs to be cleaned out before you can rebuild anything.
Yes, running the gauntlet. So thankful to grow up in the 80s when we were outside all day. We were watching something that was talking about that. We grew up with like 3 channels, no phone on you 24/7, 365. We would have to go into a friend's house if we wanted to call our parents. We'd have to go find a phone somewhere. I grew up in the suburbs. There might have been one public phone somewhere nearby, like in a mile. But in reality, it was a different world. You didn't have all these options to get information. You didn't have the ability to connect like this. But at the same time, I mean, I was like attached to my bicycle nonstop. I got so much exercise every single day. I was not sedentary at all. I was outside playing in nature. I mean, I was in rivers and the woods. It was wonderful. And now I look back and think, what a blessing. I think that's one of the reasons why we liked Stranger Things so much, because it takes us back up to our childhood and youth.
I know, I was like this little wild little Indian girl riding her paint horse up in the mountains every day, all day. I could not have asked for a better childhood.
Yeah, I like that, Emma. No such thing as too optimistic. It's coming down. Oh, yeah, it is. Meanwhile, we got a lot of crazy weather things going on. Nationwide travel chaos. Hurricane force winds are in like a bunch of states. Colorado, Montana, Texas, New Mexico, Wyoming, Oklahoma, Kansas, California, South Dakota, Nebraska, Alaska. All been warned to prepare for sustained winds over 30 miles an hour and gusts between 60 and 70 miles per hour. Yes, intense winds, not just here in the U.S. I was watching reports from around the world. There seems to be a big uptick in that. Now, we're not quite in spring yet. I know it does seem to get more windy in the spring especially, and then also again in the fall. With the way that the earth tilts and rotates, well, if you do believe that, again, I think we're divided on that aspect too. The flat earthers and the round ones. Somebody I saw did a good video where he put a time-lapse camera up on the cliffside, and it was somewhere where the night sky was reminiscent of what we would see out in New Mexico or in Nevada. And you literally see, the rotation ongoing out there, and it was pretty cool. But what we're seeing is big changes. And I do think that Mama Earth is going to clean the system away. I think the sooner we could clean the system away, the better. The sooner we could change to be more in harmony. Again, think of the body. when something is like a raging infection in the body, the white blood cells go and attack it. So if we act like an infection, she's going to respond.
I think one thing we can all agree on, though, is that we are being lied to.
Oh, absolutely. But now we know that. And I don't know. If I ask you guys, what percentage of the population now realizes that most conspiracy theories are actually conspiracy facts? What do you think? Where are we at? Have we gone over the 50%, or are we still far away from the 50% mark?
It's something that I think everything is just all over the map. I think a lot of people are still kind of confused, trying to figure things out. But you can't figure things out when the system, like every time you turn around, you find out something was a lie.
Yeah, a revision. I'm reading a book right now I just got, and it was written in, I want to say, 1678, and it's all about literally Tartaria. And so it's interesting to see some of the things that are in there. People back in those days took much more seriously the talk of giants, the talk of all sorts of strange sea monsters and things that we think are just myth, like dragons and griffins and other type of humanoid beings that are we would just think are pure sci-fi at this point in time. I got a sneaky suspicion that we weren't always so isolated, that we weren't always so quarantined, because I do think we have been in quarantine, so to speak.
I think we've definitely been in quarantine, definitely a quarantine of information.
Yes, absolutely. So, make note, the weather is turbulent, and air turbulence, if you are flying, is expected to be extreme over certain states in the Southwest. Ground delays already announced in Colorado. Oh, I hate flying when there's a lot of turbulence. Cindy, she actually loves it. She's kind of crazy in that way.
I'm a little weird sometimes.
It's like a roller coaster ride for her.
I do, because I know I'm not going to die, so I'm just having fun.
There you go. That's a good way to look at it. And here you can see a truck that blew over. And of course, if you're in areas like Montana, Wyoming, snow, oh yeah, it's just pretty wild what we're watching. It's just, it's a wild time to be alive. Meanwhile, California getting pounded, all sorts of rounds of heavy rain, extreme snow slams the Sierra Nevada. I think the snowpack, from what I had heard in the Sierra Nevada, was a little bit low for this time of year. So, yeah, that might be a good thing as long as nobody, loses their life or their property. But, it's just been wild because you get 8 feet of snow up in the higher peaks of the northern Sierra. Beautiful area. And the snow I always found to be just absolutely beautiful.
I do. I like the snow, a fresh snow. There's just something really quiet about it.
So peaceful. France's National Flood Monitoring Service reports that soil moisture in the country has reached its highest level since records began. That was just in 1959. The prolonged rainfall of the past 2 months, intensified by Storm Nils, left soils fully saturated and reduced infiltration capacity. So, elevated flood risk. In other words, mud flood, this is what we're watching, and how much of this is manufactured, because a lot of our weather is manufactured. It's pretty obvious with all those clouds up there. A lot of it is manufactured. How much of it's natural, I don't know, but there's a high percentage manufactured.
You have a lot of beings bragging about controlling the weather a long time ago.
Well, interestingly enough, both China and the United States had come out years ago saying they were going to control the weather and own the weather by 2025. Now, that was last year. We had Arwayne Steiger that we usually do a live with on Thursdays at noon Central. He had, brought up talking about about that very thing. And, I just think about everything that we're watching, and it's not like a series of unrelated events. These events are all related to each other. They're all interrelated, and it does feel like it's part of a bigger scenario that's playing out in front of us.
It does, indeed.
Absolutely. So, again, the conditions, again, for a very muddy time are building in certain areas. Now, red warning issued for heavy rain across Manawatu and some other districts in New Zealand. So you can see it. It's everywhere. It's all over. We're getting this. Now, this would happen if we had an awful lot of volcanoes going off, which we do. But we haven't had any like VEI 7 events. There's been none of those big events that you could directly blame. I guess maybe the biggest one was that Tonga explosion from, what was that, 3 years ago or so? Yeah. 3 or 4 years ago. That was big. I don't think it's that yet, but I do expect the volcanoes to increase. I do expect the earthquakes to increase as well. And I think it's going to be just, it's going to be quite an interesting ride. And since Cindy likes roller coasters, I think it's going to be like that.
Well, I do like change, and I think the sun is bringing us a great deal of positive change, even though it can feel very difficult on the energy field at times.
Okay, so yeah, Bob says 20% at most. Sin Havoc says 95% manufactured. Yeah, interesting. Yep. Yeah, we're in for a very interesting time, that is for sure. A new swarm of hybrid seismic events beneath Teide volcano in Tenerife. This area we always watch, the Canary Islands in La Palma, that whole scenario could be perhaps the most devastating event that we could imagine if this is, again, the islands that we're talking about here, Gran Canaria here. La Palma is kind of like a ticking time bomb, at least according to some scientists, with the possibility of underwater landslide that could cause a gigantic tsunami that could impact most of the Atlantic. So we watch these type of events, and this is a new swarm that's ongoing with more than 300 very low magnitude events recorded since the start of the episode. They have depths of about 5 to 7 miles, 8 to 12 kilometers below the volcano's summit. And they display hybrid waveforms typical of the interaction between rock fracturing and fluid movement. So does this mean there's going to be some sort of new eruptive event? Possibly. So it's definitely something you want to monitor with, this area. Can you sense, do you sense anything?
Not at this very moment. It feels a little bit flat, and I'm not understanding quite that energy right now.
Oh, thank you so much, Peter. We appreciate you, brother. And I have to catch up on the Polish psychic. I think I missed about 3 or 4 days of his stuff. Peter is the one that told me about the Polish psychic.
Did we get a roar yet? No, Peter, we have not gotten a roar yet, but I can be bought. So.
So yes, a roar will be coming. And I found this interesting. Geodetic strain data confirmed Iberia's slow clockwise rotation relative to Eurasia and Africa. So Iberia is the Iberian Peninsula. So that's Spain and Portugal, right? And what's happening is it's slowly rotating clockwise relative to the Eurasian and African plates. And this is curious. We just talked about going through the Straits of Gibraltar there, and you had the Pillar of Hercules. Can you imagine back in the day when the giant statue of Hercules was there? That would have been a sight to see, the old 7 wonders of the world. So it feels like this could be an area where you might end up having some major, again, geological events occurring. Now this is slow, so again they're going to tell us very, very long time frames as far as anything happening. But it's really interesting to note the motions of this. It leads to the thoughts in my mind, will Spain become an island? Is it eventually going to break off? I don't know. Again, I think things happen a lot sooner than they say, but with something like this, it would probably be beyond any of our lives.
I would think so too.
But definitely, this could add to potential faults. So there could be bigger quakes in this area than one might expect, but there have been big quakes over in this area previously. So, realize that too. And this is, in my mind, this is one of the nicer spots. I think the Mediterranean would be wonderful. I've never seen the Mediterranean. It's on our bucket list. Here you go, the dark secret behind a British billionaire's parallel state in Argentina's Patagonia. Patagonia, where those fires were happening, both Argentina and Chile. Patagonia, you remember, with all the giants and those maps. And yet it seems to be a favorite spot for some of the world's billionaires. And this article goes back to 2019. And this is interesting because it talks about being at the end of the world, kind of isolated. Not a lot of people down this area. If you want to escape a World War III type of scenario, you would probably pick this place as being one of the better places to be, I would think. And this gets you wondering because it's talking about how billionaires have approached literally the Argentinian government to buy it. Like to make it their own private country, sort of an island, to itself, where it's not an island. It has become the target of a close-knit network of notorious billionaires and global elites who have spent much of the last 2.5 decades seeking to transform this area into their own independent state. Indeed, though several of these billionaires have already created de facto private states where they enjoy near total impunity within the Argentine Patagonia, others have been behind major efforts that have pushed for the territory's succession to literally leave Argentina's government. Others have pushed the Argentinian government to exchange its claim to Patagonia for debt relief. Hey, we'll pay off some of your bills, and just let us have this, and we'll make it our own private country. One thing that the polar psychic had seen when he looked farther out, I think it was like 2050 or 2045, Peter, if you remember. I'm pretty sure it was Christoph and not the future forecasters. It was Christoph that he said he saw the United States being much smaller, literally like the size of Nevada alone, or something maybe about that size. And that was all that was left of the United States. But it was owned by a corporation, literally owned by a corporation. What if the United States defaults and like Bill Gates buys it, or Bill Gates, Bezos, and some of these other guys buy the country for debt relief? Because here's a precedent. They literally been trying to buy this area for years. And then there's the thoughts over here. Their interest revolves around the claims that date back to the founding of, wait a minute, that one movement back in the 19th century where they discussed Argentina as a potential homeland that ultimately became Israel. Whoa. And then what did we see? We saw fires being started by people from that particular country. Holy cow. This is really interesting, is it not? Yeah, this is really wild. KK says war crimes, hideouts, perhaps. Yeah. Also, again, if they're in the know because they're helping to manipulate a World War III, the Southern Hemisphere would be the place to go. And, Argentina and Chile, I believe, are the very farthest points south. I think they're farther south than Africa and perhaps even farther south than New Zealand and Australia. So, they're probably as far away from the mess as you could get, so to speak. This is really interesting, and I think with the events that we just saw happen, again, the fires that were intentionally started by people from a Middle Eastern country, were those people doing it on behalf of these billionaires that want the land for themselves? Maybe because they know this is a very, very safe place to be in these times.
Yep, you gotta ask.
This is just wow. I mean, this was a interesting one, to say the least. So the Elites won't tell you this, but the science is clear. A groundbreaking study at University of Nebraska revealed raising more cows and eating more beef saves the planet. Cows are carbon negative. They produce more oxygen than methane, and carbon they emit. Again, you get both sides, and then again, even, we're even being divided between vegetarians and carnivores and everything. Again, we have to agree to disagree in some cases, but we definitely want to push back against a system that does not have our health in mind and our best wishes, and also the best thing for the planet in mind, because a lot of times they will say they're coming to the defense of the planet, but we know it has nothing to do with that. It just simply has to do with profits.
Well, I mean, as far as, hurting the planet is concerned, if you take a live cow or a running car, I could stay the night in a garage with a live cow, but I could not stay the night in a garage with a running car, so you gotta, it's just so obvious.
Yeah, Sin Havoc springing up, Malay, again, kissing cousins with the leader over there in the Middle East, and the exact same last name. Malay is a shortened version of Milikowski. So, and of course, the Netanyahu individual had changed the family name from Milikowski. So it's always all in the family. This is the reality. So this is why you have to look at everything very, very cynically, when it comes to that. And, interesting. So this was a church. I didn't see the explanation. It just exploded. Could have been a gas blast. This is in Oneida, New York State. Dozens were injured. Gas odor reported. So was this seismic? Was it sabotage, or was it just simply, poor equipment? I don't know. Maybe it'll come out. A lot of times these things never get answered. How about this? 2 out of 3 Americans now take medication every week. Yeah, it's 62% of adults reported using at least one, pharmaceutical, one pill in the previous 7 days. Which is, again, the majority. And women, 67%, men, 57%. And interestingly, past week use of over-the-counter at 46% was nearly identical to prescription, 46%. Yeah, I don't take anything. I don't use any pharmaceuticals. And again, we rely on Mother Nature in her natural form. But this is talking about how things have changed over the years, as you have a lot of people that are on blood statins and a lot of people on blood pressure medications. So acetaminophen, ibuprofen, and aspirin held their positions as the 3 most common medications across a quarter century. But other things have drastically changed. And some medications vanished entirely because a lot of them were pulled off the market after they were found to not be safe. This is just, again, you could see, this one was pulled from the market because it had increased stroke risk. This other one, because it was probably a carcinogenic. This is the reality. But, 2 out of 3 Americans still are on things. And, as a former retirement community manager, I could tell you some people take like 30 pills a day, every day. And, it's just crazy to me. It's absolute craziness. I think, again, so much of what we see is really coming down to our choices on what we eat And do we give our body enough, good proper rest and exercise? And do we have a mind, body, breath practice to relieve stress?
And it's so important. Emotions can do so much to you if they get stuck in the body. I mean, they can really wreak havoc if you have traumas, even from childhood, that can stick into the body and create a lot of issues later on down the line. It's important to be able to process those, diffuse them, get them out of the body, repattern the energy field, and that can really bring people to, just a better place.
Yes, absolutely. So, it's just a state. And this is also why, maybe this is partly why we have people that, haven't woke up and still just seem to be clueless. Maybe they don't even seem like they're irritated over the fact that, all the chaos and craziness that came out. Do you remember this with the Miami Mall with the people panicked and running? Do you remember seeing this where it looks like it's a giant shadow up there? It's just, again, the official explanation was it was a play on light. It was just a normal sized person. Their shadow was blown up again and nothing to see here. It really seems that there was something strange. That there was talk of a portal with the Miami situation. And a lot of people were just terrified. Was it one big psyop? Was it like testing out MK Ultra? Was it some sort of frequency just to see how riled up you can get people to go? I mean, was it like a Project Bluebeam type thing?
And it really felt like a project to me in some way, where these people testing to see if under a certain frequency they could see into another dimension. It felt really weird to me.
Yeah, Sin Havoc says those were interdimensional, multidimensional beings in Miami. I think a lot of people think so. But we've had so many different cases of that type of thing. I mean, this one was a little bit unique, but I mean, again, think back to Nevada. You remember Nevada, with seeing the stuff in the backyard, aliens in the backyard. Again, I've shared with you guys my experience waking up and seeing a tall gray stooping over me. That was pretty wild, and it was clear as day. But it's not just me. Again, my kids had encounters with grays, and in fact, they were 10 years apart, but both of them would end up coming and sleeping in the bedroom because they were afraid, because they had seen grays, and that's exactly what they described. It's really actually, close encounters are way more common than people realize.
Yeah, people get harassed for sure.
Oh, Frankie, Big Blue Pup, I hope you all doing well, and we look forward to having that next session with you too. Thank you so much for your support. Again, we couldn't do it without you. Preliminal says, last night I saw an alleged actual photo of a tall blonde alien. I think, again, we probably have actually all seen them. We might have actually even seen them literally in Congress. I mean, we don't know. The reality is, there's a lot of different beings out there. There's a lot of different life forms out there. We're not alone. We've never been alone. Every mythology from every culture tells us this. They also tell us of beings that landed from the sky. And then there's also a lot of mythology, quote unquote. Again, they recount as actual events of encounters with, again, mer people. But again, Cindy has verified that these beings have been here a long time, like the mer people, the Oans and Dagon, etc. Yeah, these are beings that came here from elsewhere. Again, space is more like an ocean than it is a vacuum. That's the part that they confuse us with. And this is one that I've been meditating on. This is a depiction which, did Chat give this to you? I forget.
I told Chat what I saw.
Okay,
That's what he drew. Thank God. Yeah, I told him what I was seeing with the earth, and that's what came up, and that was what I could see in my head.
So this is what Cindy sees in regards to the earth, right? Other realms. We're not we're not alone here. There's whole other realms on this planet. Earth, again, is so much bigger than what they tell us. And, one of our good friends who's very gifted too, he shared with us this week that he was getting in deep meditation and communication with his guides, that there's somewhere around 30 of these individual realms here. Now, many of these are 5D type of realities or higher dimensional realities than ours. We're kind of in the lowest vibrational one of these, I think, is what we've gotten, or one of the lower, vibrational realities. Each one of these is a unique reality. Now, can you see when you look at something like this, you can see why the flat earthers would say the earth is flat, because they're only looking at this. They don't see the other part of the earth that's missing. And, here's that very, very famous ice wall, which is in reality a dimensional barrier. And in our case, it's been kind of a quarantine zone. But intentionally, these other realities are quarantined from each other, at least to some degree, because they're different experiences that the soul is having in its incarnation.
Well, and each one of these worlds has a different frequency about it. It's kind of like a radio station. Each world puts off a different vibe, and you have the ability to tune into these other worlds, but we don't have the ability right now to go there in these 3D bodies.
Yes, astral projecting, I remember very clearly. It happened more than once, but one time in particular was so vivid. I found myself, thinking about going way out into space, thinking about other worlds. And I found myself traveling out of body very, very fast. And then I turned and looked around back, and the Earth was, like a globe. It wasn't necessarily perfectly round, but it was roundish. But that was from such a distance, too, that I didn't see all these features. Now, this is what Cindy was remote viewing, which would then verify what people say with flat Earth, and at the same time, it still is round. It's just that our section of the planet is basically flat-ish. It's convex, I guess you would say. We're in kind of like a concave recess, so to speak, but it's kind of convex within a concave structure, if that makes any sense to you.
It's very difficult. I think that the gravity, everything that we've been taught, is basically untrue. And what do they see when they go out there? I don't think they're going out that far.
No, so they only see this.
They only see just a little bit. That's what I'm picking up. I mean, I know that there's a lot of this where I can't explain why. This is just what I'm shown in my head. I don't have the rest of the information, but this is what really helped me understand that, we are all being lied to. All of us have a piece in this puzzle.
I love that, Lily Blade. It's a petri dish. You're
Aww,
right.
We're a little petri dish. I like that. I like petries. And Karma Doc, you guys make sure you're taking really good care of yourself. The flu is still going around pretty bad. So take lots and lots of vitamin C. When she says something, I listen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think this is one of our biggest, psyops that they've given us is about our reality. So where do these beings come from, right? The bigger Earth. A lot of them. But at the same time, not necessarily all of them. There's many beings that I think, are in our myths and legends. That maybe, it was before the quarantine where beings could come and go from the different realities more than they do. Or also when we were allowed to have visitors from elsewhere literally come and teach, guide, just converse with us, which that's what we're heading back into because we're going into the Bronze Age. Now, the other part that, Cindy got was that some of these, are very much higher frequency than ours.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a radio station. So, for us, it's the 3D. There's actually denser dimensions than ours too. I picked that up. And what is in those denser dimensions, oddly enough, is plant life that is very, very full of nourishment. That's the best way I can describe it. And then you have higher dimensions, and we can go to all of these places, but not in our 3D bodies. And we will at some point move up in vibration, and then maybe a new petri dish will be seeded.
Yes, and absolutely. FRB Supreme Magnetar. Check out Italian PNC. There are others out there that have seen very similar to this. I do think, again, when you look out, oh man, our reality, the real reality, is so much bigger than they tell us. It's so much bigger than they tell us. And, it's something that we should take heart with, because this system has really only infected our area. This system, the dark matrix system, has really only infected us as far as the rest of the realms on the planet.
Yeah, it's pretty kind of icky what's been going on. I think hopefully more and more truth is going to start coming out with certain planetary alignments coming up. There's going to be, I think there's going to be a forced truth. I really, really do. And I don't think it's going to take years and years and years. I think in our lifetimes, we're going to see the truth.
So Cindy's going to give us some dings. And
yes, I promised Peter a roar. I promised Peter a roar. So we're going to do that. Get ready for chills. You guys are going to just get blown away. And are you ready? So let's do the roar first, and then we'll do the dings. Sound good? And while I'm doing the roar, think of something, I don't know. As I'm going to do the roar. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Roar! There we go. I hope the dogs are okay there, Pincher. I hope mine are okay. Sassy came running. Sita lifted her head.
And here comes Rama.
And here comes Rama. Rama's coming in to check.
And here comes the penguins.
And the penguins. We got penguins. Penguin sighting. Okay. Pups are gathered for dings. All right, Pinch Runner. Here we go. Think happy thoughts. Here we go. You guys are awesome and amazing. Source bless and namaste.
Guys, thank you so much. May you all be blessed. Loka samasta, Suki no bhavantu. May all beings everywhere be happy and free. And may my thoughts, actions, words, and deeds contribute to that freedom and happiness. May the planet be free. That's the biggest wish. As always, guys, much love and gratitude. Source bless.
Namaste.